begin this program here, and let's give her a warm welcome.
Good morning. Yesterday, I was asked to come speak to all of you about the importance of volunteering. And I'm going to do just that. But first, I want to tell you a story. And it's a true story. It's a story about a lady that was home with the flu on Saturday night. And what do you do when you're at home with the flu alone on Saturday night? Well, what else other than watch a movie on Netflix? And so she did. She watched a movie called Holiday in the Wild. And what is this movie about? Holiday in the Wild. Holiday in the Wild is an excellent movie, and it's about a mom who, just like many of you, has a kid that's going to go away to college. And so exactly that happens. The kid walks out the door to go to college, and the minute he walks out the door, she turns to her husband and says, "We actually have an empty nest now, and I have a surprise for you." And the surprise are 2 tickets to Africa. And she's happy about it. She's excited. Well, her husband had a surprise for her. He looks at her and says, "I don't want to be with you anymore." So wasn't a bad guy. He just didn't want to be with her anymore. And in that instance, her world shattered. And here she is with 2 tickets to Africa. And what is she going to do? I will tell you what happened. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Raquel Levy, and I am a personal injury lawyer right here in Holly Hill. I'm proud to be in Holly Hill. And what I do for a living, I'm a personal injury attorney. We do cases such as car accidents, slip and falls, food poisoning, and products liability. That is what I do to make money. And I do it well, and I get good results for my clients. But what I do to volunteer is I am an animal rights attorney. Our firm has done so much to help animals. I went ahead and in preparation for this, I just found out I was speaking yesterday. I had a long list of things that we've done, but there's no point in going through this super long list. We've donated thousands to animals. We've saved hundreds of dogs from euthanasia, which means dogs that would have been killed had it not been for our funding. We've helped turtles. We've worked closely with the Volusia Turtle Patrol, helping them, fostering nests. There was actually a sanctuary that Atlantic Law Center helped, and they had animals, and each animal had a story of survival. So there was this pig that weighed about 1.5 tons, and this pig had escaped from the slaughterhouse. And I didn't even know pigs could swim, but apparently this pig crossed the river because the slaughterhouse caught on fire, and he was able to make it to safety. Well, this sanctuary picked up that pig, and of course I went to meet the pig. I knew the media was going to be there, and here I am standing right next to the pig who weighs over 1 ton, leaning on me, and I'm on high heels, and I almost fell into the mud pit. But I didn't, and that was a really happy story. We have many other happy stories. We've worked with many groups to actually change laws, and right now we're trying to pass an anti-tethering law. We've done a lot to actually help animals. During Puerto Rico hurricane last year, my firm supported the efforts that were being done to rebuild Puerto Rico, and I have 2 girls. Their names are Alexa and Bella, and I call them my junior lawyers. They're very active in helping the community. We've stood on street corners. We've held up signs for Amendment 13. We've done so very much. And I could just go on and on and on. But enough about me. I want to talk about you guys today. I want to talk about how important it is for you guys to volunteer. We live in a democracy. We live in a place where you can grow up to be whatever it is that you want to be. We live in the land of opportunity, land of freedom. Whatever it is you want to become, you can become that. But along with that privilege of freedom comes responsibility. And that's the responsibility to give back. Everybody here has talents. Everyone. I'm sure that everyone has talents. I know I have talents. There's things that I know how to do better than anybody else that I know. And there's stuff that you guys know how to do better than anybody else that you know. And those are our talents. We can use those talents to make the world a better place. I spoke with a gentleman by the name of Michael Brodsky yesterday. And Michael Brodsky is a good friend of mine. And he wrote a book called Incremental Improvements. And it basically talks about changing your life one step at a time. So Michael in his book says, what is one thing that you can do today to make your life better? What is one thing you can do today to make your community better? What is one thing that you can do today to make the world better? You see, along with all the privileges that we have comes the responsibility to ask that question. Because like I said, all of us have talents. So, what is the difference between a hero and a villain? Because heroes, whether they're superheroes or whether they're real life heroes, they have talents. But so do villains. Look at Hitler. Some villains have a lot of talent. So what distinguishes somebody who is a hero from somebody who is a villain? I'll tell you what distinguishes it. A hero is somebody who becomes strong, who is physically, emotional, and spiritually strong. And they become strong not just for their own benefit, their own gratification, their own ego. They become strong so that they can make the world a better place. And they ask, how can I use this talent that I have to make the world a better place and to give back to our community, to give back to the world, to be a force of good, to alleviate suffering in the world? That is what a hero asks. The villain won't ask such question. And we've all met them. And if anything good comes from the villain's actions, it is simply because it was incidental. The villain will ask, how can I use this talent to help myself? For my own ego, for my own agenda. So I'm here today to appeal to all of you and asking each and every one of you here to join me and become a hero. Ask yourself what talents you have and what you can do to be a force of good in this world. So sometimes it's easy to become bitter. So in a world where there are no mensches, be the mensch. In a world where you look around and you see things you don't like, things that are unfair, things that you can't believe are happening, like a lab puppy being beaten to death because he chewed up furniture, as it happened to a dog by the name of Ponce, who was brutally beaten to death in Ponce Inlet by the owner. Well, as an animal rights lawyer, animals are considered property. But thanks to the efforts of a woman by the name of Debbie Dorino and Chief Fabrizio, and many of us who wanted to see change, a community that wanted to see change, that wanted perpetrators to be held accountable for doing things like this, we now have U.S. Senate Bill 1576, known as Ponce's Law. So this puppy did not die in vain because something was done, a change. And that is what a hero does. A hero is somebody who makes a difference and makes a better difference, a better change in the world. So ladies and gentlemen, back to the story about this woman, this mom, whose husband had left her. What did she do with the 2 tickets to Africa? I will tell you what she did. What she did with those 2 tickets is she went to Africa. And she went there, and she was on a plane once she arrived, and Rob Lowe was the pilot. And so she's flying, and he sees an elephant that had been killed by a poacher. So this movie, Holiday in the Wild, is a beautiful story about holidays in Africa, but it's also kind of like an introduction to poaching and the problem that we have with the ivory trade in Africa. So this elephant is killed by a poacher because apparently they needed ivory for some piano or something. And so when they go down to see the dead elephant, they find a baby, an orphaned elephant, with its mother. So this mom, with the assistance of Rob Lowe, together, they save the baby elephant. And this woman spends the next 6 months in Africa as a veterinarian, helping animals in need, helping orphaned elephants. And then, the way the movie goes, a year later, she sees her husband again, nice guy. He notices how happy she is. She's gleaming with joy, she's healed, she's renewed, and he asks her, "Did you find somebody in Africa?" Thinking, why else would she be so happy? And then there's a long, dramatic pause. She says, yes. Another long, dramatic pause. And she says, "I found myself." And that is a very powerful quote in the movie, because she did find herself. She found herself by focusing on a cause that was greater than herself, by focusing on the importance of volunteering, on making a change, on making the world a better place. And so, to wind up, let me tell you guys about this very nice lady who was on the couch Saturday night watching this movie, Holiday in the Wild. So, to tell you something about her, well, she was so inspired by this movie that she actually posted on Facebook, on her business page. Mind you, the business page is Atlantic Law Center. So, posted how great the movie was, along with a picture of me and my 2 daughters, Alexa and Bella. Well, coincidentally, the director of the movie and I had a mutual friend. And our mutual friend is Michael Brodsky. At the time that I said something about the movie, I had no idea who the director was. I didn't know. I was just truly inspired by that movie. So long story short, the director of Holiday in the Wild and I have spoken for hours. He's a lover of animals. He's a lover of the environment. And we will be working together to pass legislation that's going to help animals. I'm sure all of you have heard of the PACT Act, the Prevention of Animal Cruelty and Torture, which was just passed by the House of Representatives. And now we're awaiting Senate approval. And he said he would love to be part of that, part of making sure that this proposed law becomes solid federal legislation that is going to help animals. And by the way, the director's name is Ernie Bradshaw, and he had a message for all of you guys here today. I'm reading what he wrote. He said, "Hello, students. I urge all of you to volunteer, not only because you'd be helping people or because you'd be helping animals in need. I urge all of you to volunteer because by the act of volunteering, you're actually helping yourself." He mentions that his favorite quote is that volunteers don't necessarily have the time, volunteers have the heart. And I think that that's true. Ladies and gentlemen, if you feel like you don't have resources, if you feel like you can't help, remember you don't have to be a lawyer to make a difference. You can just be a person who's helping in the capacity that you can help. Remember that your first and primary obligation is to yourself, to be strong, physically, mentally, spiritually, so that you can all be heroes and make a big difference in the world. And if you feel like you don't have enough resources, that's not true. I didn't come from a place where I had a lot of resources. And people who succeed and people who make a difference are not necessarily the ones with the most resources. The people who make a change are the ones with the most resourcefulness. And that is what really makes a difference. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the Holly Hill Sheriff's Office for having me. It was a pleasure to speak to all of you. Thank you. Thank you, guys.